This is the big story. The United Nations is also among those that criticize President Duterte's bloody anti-drug war. Robbie Alampay spoke with Olivier Lermet, regional advisor of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. He said the drug problem is not unique to the Philippines and that the country should learn how to deal with it from others' experiences. Here's the first part of that interview.
We have been observing an increase of production, trafficking, and drug use in the last years, a very sharp one. So that from that point of view, the Philippines is not the exception. Why is this happening? We can see that to produce opium or opiates or heroin, it needs to be botanically grown, right? You need a special terrain, some level of light, etc. So it had to be produced in some specific areas of the region. The other factor that is triggering that increase of trafficking, production and trafficking, is the interconnectivity of ASEAN. Today we were here for a regional meeting. We can see that ASEAN is a fantastic development in terms of economic progress, trade, exchange of goods and movement of goods and persons. Well, that movement is, of course, facilitating the trafficking. So that means that we have a very constant trend, regardless of the level of law enforcement efforts and the nature in each country. And this trend is here to stay. What we recommend is really going after the big traffickers. There are very little big drug lords that have been arrested in the region in the recent years. So to do that, there is a need to have a sharp law enforcement response, which means following the money trail, looking after the corruption, the money laundering. So this requires some capacities, and we're supporting that at the regional level. Another element in terms of addressing the supply is addressing the chemical precursor movements that are needed to produce drugs. There is currently not enough efforts in that direction. But most importantly, and this is also aligned with the global discussion about drug policy. First, of course, there is a need to try to prevent people from using drugs. What we recommend instead is transitioning towards voluntary community-based services for drug users. This is very important because one of the main factors of success for someone to treat his dependence or to not become dependent is the person. Drug dependence is a chronic, relapsing and treatable condition, often occurring together with mental health condition. So the idea is that sometimes the person who is going to try to get out of that dependence is likely to relapse, which means to be back at some stage to using the substance or to not follow the treatment protocol properly. Well, when this happens, what is needed is more support.
What can the Philippine war on drugs learn from the experiences in Thailand, Indonesia, and past campaigns in ASEAN?
This is also something that has been discussed globally. Last year, we had what we call the UN General Assembly on special session on the drug problem. And those issues were mentioned by countries like Thailand, but many other countries that have been leading in the past very strong-handed approaches to the drug problem, like Colombia, Guatemala, Mexico. And they all came back with the same conclusion, that added to the issues I was mentioning for the prison system, it kind of fueled in those countries more corruption, more violence, more law enforcement victim of this, judiciary under threat. So they have said that they wanted to rediscuss this a little bit at the global level. So those global discussions took place in April this year. And, well, there cannot be a total consensus on all those aspects. But countries have agreed that there is a need to put the people at the center. That is not only about seizures, it's about limiting the negative consequences of that drug problem. It's about protecting individuals, their families, their communities, their societies. And that in most cases, the agreement is that there is a need again to focus on a health approach to those issues.